Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Shadowlands beta. My name is Shirley, and today we're going to be taking a look at Plaguefall on Mythic 0, or just the base Mythic difficulty. This was recorded last week, last Thursday, and we're going to look at, arms, things in the dungeon here. I do want to open this out saying that this dungeon, Plaguefall specifically, at least on Mythic 0, seemed to be rather overtuned currently. There was definitely some bugs in here that we reported as well, a few weird issues, but generally I'd say the dungeon overall is just a little overtuned. The trash, the bosses, a few of the environmental mechanics even, that you wouldn't really normally have to worry about. But yeah, going into this right away, this is the beginning of the dungeon. These little fungi guys, whatever you call it, Meyer soldiers and stuff, the mushroom men, they seem a bit overtuned, and there's some weird interactions with these other mushrooms around the room, pulling them. Obviously, we could have been a little bit cleaner here, but there's a lot of damage going out in, at the beginning of this, and basically all of the trash packs here, so this is just a quick wipe going forward to show our struggle in this dungeon. We were in here for a couple of hours getting through this on the Mythic 0. And I do keep bringing that up because we did a Mythic 10 a little bit afterwards. And I should mention that it's the Blizzard scales all your characters for these dungeons currently on the beta. Well, they did anyway before they wiped the template characters, because this is at 60. But the scaling for the Mythic 0 seems either off or everything was just really overtuned. I think it's a little bit of both, because the Mythic 10 we did on a different dungeon was considerably easier than this one, so take that for what it is. But anyway, this is the first boss room. We got to clear out these little boys here, and we went ahead and pulled the boss. I was finishing up this little bit of trash. He does some, fairly basic mechanics. He's got a cone in front of him, he's got a knockback, and he also summons some ads. So you gotta kill these ads before they get to him, otherwise they'll heal him. There's a little breath thing he does that you gotta get out of the way from. And that brings me to warrior stuff. Let's see, I'm playing with the Venthyr Covenant at the moment during this test with Condemn, and I was spec'd into Skull Splitter, Massacre, because I wanted to get the most out of Condemn. And oh, here's the little ads. You spawn around the room, you gotta chunk them down as fast as you can. I gotta say, it's really nice having Piercing Howl as arms, especially the new updated version that's like a super slow. It's like 70% rather than 50 off a hamstring, so super useful, especially with the new Bladestorm change, or not the Bladestorm change, but the Mastery change makes Bladestorm a lot better than it was. But yeah, I like that a lot. Going back to the talent choices, I'm spec'd into those two. Warbreaker, let's see, not in for the kill. I'm using Avatar just because I wanted to test it. And during this dungeon, I'm also using the new redesigned Dreadnought instead of Anger Management, mostly just because I just wanted to test out the new things. And if you didn't know, the new Dreadnought is basically the Azerite trait, Seismic Wave, and it makes your overpower, propel a shockwave line in front of it that does AoE damage. It's currently capped at 5 targets, like Whirlwind and most of the other AoE abilities in the game, so take that for what it is. But you can also still cleave it with Sweeping Strikes on multiple things. It will generate multiple seismic waves, so for dungeons in an AoE situation, if it was anything like Seismic Wave from BFA, then it was going to be really good in AoE, so I wanted to give it a fair shot. And last but not least, the legendary that I'm using, I chose, for this dungeon anyway, to use the Executioner's Precision 1. Can't remember exactly what it's called on the beta, but it's the old Azerite trait that makes Execute debuff the target, which will increase the damage of your next mortal strike on the target by 25%, stacking 2 times. And it seemed to pair well with Dreadnought, since it gives you just 2 charges of overpower baseline, so it's easier to stack that up. As well as my thought process being that you would use this quite often with Condemn, since you're opening a fight with Condemn, and that's giving you the benefit of the Mortal Strike as well as at the end of the fight. It just seemed like a really consistent damage build. There's the damage breakdown. I wanted to flash real quick for the first boss there. Obviously, there's some ads in there that change things up. This is the second boss room, these platforms around the room here and the big pool of goop in the middle. What we didn't know is that when you pull the trash to clear out here, the boss actually jumps around the room, and he'll do this after you kill the first trash pack, so don't make our mistake. Wait for him to jump around, otherwise he'll jump on you and wipe your group like he's doing to us right here. But, you know, that's the fun of beta, is learning all these things. And here's the boss himself. You can see him kind of sail in there and jump onto our group. We're going to go ahead and pull here. We didn't have Bloodlust for this one because it took us a few pulls to figure out what the hell he was doing. But Dr. Ickis here, he puts a debuff on the tank, and the healer can dispel it, and it'll spawn these little goop ads around him. And you can just run over and step on them really fast, and it'll instantly kill them. Otherwise, if you don't step on them, they'll transform after a few seconds into a bigger slime ad that you have to kill anyway, and it's got a lot more health. And then periodically, he'll jump from platform to platform and spawn these big slimes that have this little bomb timer above their head. And you have to get over there as fast as you can and kill these things immediately. Otherwise, if that bomb goes off, it's going to kill your group. And on the platforms themselves, he'll also do the little leap thing you saw. You could see the little point target reticle on the ground. You don't want to be under that because it'll just kill you once again. But he also projects like a cross of lines out underneath him when he lands. And there's no indicator, as far as I could tell, that tells you which way they're spawning. So it's better right here. It's better to just hang back and, you know, avoid that rather than potentially eating those slime lines like I do, like there. It's not enough to instantly kill you, but it is a decent amount of damage. And he's going to go ahead and jump again at 30-ish% health, which is really nice because I can condemn here. I had Avatar and all my cooldowns up, so I was going to go for the kill here rather than kill this bomb on the side, but we didn't actually communicate that. So my casters in the group, or caster, I guess the druid is playing feral actually, are working on the bomb where I'm just executing the boss, because execute. But yeah, luckily I go ahead and switch in time since he wasn't going to die, and we get that down, so it wasn't the end of the world. But the big slime here, normally you would be, you know, killing that as well, but since the boss was so low health, I just opted to, you know, go for the kill on the boss, which maybe wasn't the right call. I can't remember if our tank ends up dying here to that ad. He might. But yeah, that's pretty much Dr. Ickis in a nutshell. I think this is a good fight. I like it. It's got some decent... It seemed like, as far as the overtuning of the dungeon goes, this guy seemed tuned fairly well. He had a nice window to get the bomb thing down. The mechanic of avoiding extra ads by stepping on the little slimes is neat. Thumbs up. I like the fight. Now moving on to the next room, the Oozing Fields, this gauntlet area. This little trash zone gets its own special place in this video because it's awful. It's overtuned, there's some mechanical problems here. So anyway, you got this big, giant slime field thing with a bunch of trash, and there's giant slime ooze guy on the side of a cliff you can't see that's chucking these ooze patches at you. That's what that green arrow was over my head right here, and then it'll leave that little patch on the ground after it is launched at you. The problem is that these things, when you get it above your head, when they actually shoot out, you have like half a second to get out of the way. They're way too fast. I think my feedback from Blizzard would be there needs to be a little bit of a delay to move out of the way, because if you have the debuff from the actual slime pool around the area, it puts a slow on you. It also does ticking damage, and if you get the little bombardment thing, then you can't get out of the way in time unless you're dispelled. So when you're moving through this gauntlet area, like you're obviously going through each of the, you know, the zones, you're going to have that dot on you anyway, so it's going to just constantly be ticking, and if you're playing a class that can't cleanse themselves or heal, it'll just kill you. And I also wanted to bring it back up, because this is the second to last boss, the run back. You have to go through that slime field every single time you do this boss. I don't know if they're going to change that or not, but it's awful running through that. But anyway, getting on to this boss, Plaguefall. This guy's pretty neat. He's got a few mechanics. You have to be stacked up throughout the entire fight, otherwise it will stun you and put this little cocoon thing around you that people can DPS out and get you free again. But he'll also randomly debuff somebody that needs to move out of the group, you know, before this thing expires, otherwise it'll stun the entire group. So it's a nice little bit of dance you trying to move as a group. And then he'll periodically spawn these spider webs around the room, these things right here. And there's a little ad in the middle of these that's invisible, that's casting that kind of axe toss looking thing just constantly. And you need to go run on top of them to break them out. So you have to move around as a group. This is also a nice time to demonstrate the Venthyr Covenant ability. The teleport was really useful here from just crossing the room, since it seems they spawn randomly around the room, not on top of people. Luckily, we got down the boss there after a few tries with our healer's rock elemental for the win. So, way to go, Larry. You go through the door, and there's a little bit of extra trash, and this is the final boss room. It's right after the previous boss. And we found out that these little skeleton or zombie ads here, they move super slow, but they do a ton of damage. So the idea is you want your tank to pick up threat on all of them, and then you AoE him down while he kites. And this is a similar mechanic on the boss itself. The little caster guy that teleports around, it doesn't seem like he does really anything special. He just spams Pestilence Bolt. We thought maybe if you killed this guy first, he would like despawn these ads, but it doesn't. He just kind of does his own thing and pulls the other little groups. Another opportunity for Piercing Howl to shine here because of the big slow. Lets your tank kite better. Speaking of tanks, I did want to point out our Prot Warriors playing the Kyrian Covenants with the Spear of Bastion, and he was using Ravager for this dungeon as well. Really strong combo. Like if you've been paying attention to details or whatever, throughout the entire dungeon, you could really pull off some pretty crazy damage actually as Prot. So Spear's looking really good. I tested it some myself, his arms, and it definitely seems pretty good. But for this run, it was Condemn all the way. I'm quite enjoying Condemn, mostly because it looks really cool. But gonna go ahead and clean up the rest of this trash here. One thing I did want to point out is that there's a conduit for Condemn that increases its damage by 8% per enemy around you up to 40%. So in 5 targets, you'll do 40% more damage with Condemn. And it seemed like in those situations, especially like 3 targets or whatever, it was better to just Sweeping Strikes Condemn on everything rather than ever Whirlwinding, because Condemn just does so much more damage, and Whirlwind's pretty weak at the moment. But yeah, anyways, here's the boss. She does this, she does a few things. She spams Infectious Rain, and we thought maybe you could avoid this at first. It's just this poison dot, but no, you can't. It's just something you have to heal through. And then periodically, she'll spawn this little slime ad guy around the room, and you gotta kill him. And he also puts a slam debuff thing on the tank when he's stationary anyway that you gotta kind of... Now that I think about it, maybe you have to soak it. I didn't read the dungeon journal for it, but I was avoiding it and standing, next to him. And the big part of this fight is this tentacle phase, this intermission. We have to run around the room and find the gaps in these tentacles. A little bit of feedback here for Blizz. Well, obviously, there's a few issues with tentacle spawns. Some of them are bugged visually, where it would project where it wasn't actually going, so that's an obvious thing that needs fixed. But as far as feedback, I think it needs to be a little bit more obvious on some of these spawns. Like this one is easy because it's right next to the ad guy that spawns here. You could tell where it was going to go, but a few of them are really odd. It looks like it's going to go one way, but it doesn't. It goes a different direction. So the telegraphing, I think, needs a little bit of work on that. But other than that, she spawns these dudes. There's the slam thing I'm talking about. You can stand right on the edge of it and avoid the tentacle bash and that. So that's what I was doing. But she'll also spawn the little zombie boys that are around the room. They're just like the trash previously. You need to pick up threat on all of them because they melee really hard and then kite them constantly. But the tank has to be in melee range all the time as well. Otherwise, the boss itself hits really hard for anybody that's, in melee range if the tank is out, since she doesn't cast or anything. But you can see where these tentacles are going around and just moving with them, and we're just trying to get as much passive damage on these ads as you can, because you don't want to be overwhelmed by them. Potentially, like with enough gear, you just ignore all these and burn the boss, but currently we were just, going for the kill on all of them. Unfortunately, I popped all my cooldowns right when she went down to her intermission phase a little bit ago. And right here, I don't know what I was thinking. We've been wiping on this boss for like an hour. Because we didn't actually see it on this pull. There's one of the tentacle spawns that it rotates around the room. It's really hard to deal with. So I wasn't paying too much attention here at the end. So I got hit by one of them. But we got the kill anyway. And then that's Plaguefall. I don't actually know what I died to at the end there, those 5k hits. It might have been that zombie next to me meleeing me, but I thought I was out of range from that in time. It's hard to say. But yeah, overall thoughts on the dungeon. There's the damage breakdown again. If you want to see it, Condemn is looking extremely good, obviously. It's a little bit rough on the trash. I'm not looking forward to this one on like bolstering and stuff weeks for Mythic Plus, but the bosses themselves I like. They're unique enough. They get some nice mechanics. The only one I really don't care for so much is the very last boss here. Like I said, if they clean up the telegraphing on those tentacles, make it a bit more obvious, then I'll have no problem with it. But I can see a lot of people, you know, in a pug wiping to this boss because those things hit really hard, and on tyrannical weeks, I'm sure that'll be just one-shotting you. But anyway, there's the first thoughts on Condemn in the Shadowlands beta and Plaguefall. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. I will see you next time. Peace.